Hi, in this tutorial, we'll be showing you how to create a text-to-image stable diffusion model with numbers protocol blockchain integration. This showcase demonstrates what creating traceable generative AI content will look like by combining the powers of Instill's no-code versatile data pipeline creation with numbers protocol's on-chain records. To start, you'll need to create a free account on the Instill AI platform. Simply navigate to instill.tech and click on Try Instill Cloud Free. Once you have your account all set up, you'll be navigated to the Instill AI dashboard. This is what you see on the screen. To create our AI model pipeline, we'll need to navigate to the Pipeline tab and click on Add New Pipeline. From there, we're navigating to the Pipeline Editor. It's here where we'll set up our Stable Diffusion Model and Numbers Protocol blockchain integration. Instill's pipeline editor is split up into three sections. On the right is your properties window. It's here where you define the pipeline ID and description. Instill assigns a random ID to start with. Let's make our pipeline ID more descriptive. On the left are draggable components. These components are what determines what models are used, whether or not we want on-chain records, and which parameters are inputted and outputted. In the center is where we construct our pipeline. Let's do that now. All models take in some inputs, a source, and output some result, the destination. Let's add these components into our pipeline. For our text-to-image model, we expect to take in some text and output an image. Since we want to make our generative AI image traceable and transparent, we'll need to input some metadata as well. Before we move on, I think it's necessary to take some time to discuss why traceability is so important. With generative AI becoming so good, it's difficult to tell whether something is human or AI created. This lack of transparency opens the door to a lot of issues. By defining a creation as AI generated at onset and storing it on chain, we are able to create immutable records that can be looked up easily for verification. On top of this, we can define things like license, creator, and move to more to help to establish protections and credit in an open web. Okay, so enough of that tangent. Let's add our AI and blockchain components. So let's navigate to the AI tab and look for text-to-image stable diffusion. And we'll navigate to the blockchain tab and we'll add our Instill numbers. Okay, so let's organize this a little bit. Okay, so now that we have all of our components on screen, let's connect these together. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, we'll input some text and it'll be fed into our stable diffusion model. Our model will then output an image, which we want as an output. We also want this image to be stored onto numbers blockchain. We also mentioned that we are going to be feeding in some metadata because this metadata will be stored onto the blockchain. So as I mentioned, we'll connect the metadata to the numbers blockchain. And we'll be interested in what metadata will be added in. So we'll also have this as an output. On top of this, I think it'd be very interesting to have to know what prompt we use, so we can go ahead and also feed that into the blockchain as well. Okay, so with all these connectors set up, I think we can go ahead and create. And then activate. Okay. So with the pipeline activated, we can navigate to the properties window. And we can view how to trigger this pipeline. So the way we trigger this pipeline is through this post API endpoint. And with our API token, which we can set up under the settings tab. I'll demonstrate that now briefly. Okay, so we go ahead and click on the top right, and we click on API tokens, and we go ahead and set that up. Okay, now let's navigate to Postman and set up the API call. So we have here a post request, and we've already pasted in the endpoint. And over here under headers, we've set up our authorization with our Instill API token. Let's go ahead and take a look at the body and our inputs. So let's take a closer look. So right under here, under text, we have our prompt, Shiba Inu Pokemon Trainer, and currently our metadata is empty. To figure out how we can set up our metadata, let's take a look at the official Instill AI documentation. Okay, on screen here, we have the Instill documentation on Numbers protocol. Let's go ahead and navigate to expected input data fields. So if you take a look, you can see the different items that we can add for our metadata. So we can add things like asset creator. We can put our generated by. We can also put our custom. We can also input a license. And over here, we have something called capture token. So since we're interacting with Numbers blockchain to create on-chain records, we'll have to have native num token to facilitate these transactions. Lucky for us, Numbers protocol provides us with 12 free credits when we sign up for an account. So let's do that. There are currently two ways we can do this. So we can either create an account via the API. So if we take over here, we can send an API request over here. Or we can navigate to dashboard.captureapp.xyz and fill in this form here to create an account. I already have one, so let's go ahead and get our capture token. To cap our capture token, we'll need to send a post request. So if we take a look at this capture app XYZ documentation, we can send a post request to this endpoint here with our account details, our email, password, and then we can get our auth token. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we're back in Postman. I've created a new post request with the API endpoint from the capture documentation. I've inputted in my email and password, and I'll go ahead and send this request. So after sending the request, I have my auth token. So this is what I'll be using in for capture token. So let's navigate back to the Instill API endpoint. I've gone ahead and added my metadata to the body of the API pipeline. As you can see, I've defined myself as the creator, and I've added my capture token. I've also defined generated by as Stability AI Stable Diffusion, and I've also added the license. With all this ready, I can go ahead and send this request. Expect this process to take around 1 minute to complete since there's a lot of things happening. Okay, done. So let's take a look at the response. Here we can look at the outputs. Under image, we have this big block of text, this blob. This blob is our image in base64 encoded format. So if we wanted to, we can take this entire string here and convert it and save it as an image file, but we don't need to do that. Because if we scroll down further to the metadata, we can view some interesting information. Okay, so under metadata, we can see asset CIDs. This asset CID is a unique ID for our AI-generated image. All media registered to Numbers protocol is assigned a unique ID, which can be used to query and search for its records. Underneath it here, we see asset URL. So here we have a link to something called an asset profile. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so here's the asset profile. You can think of the asset profile as the LinkedIn profile of the generated image. So we can see the generated image on the left-hand side, and on the right, we have a full information summary, including creator, what the license is, how it's generated, and other information. All these information is acquired from on-chain records. We could view these records from the commit table. If we scroll down to the bottom, we can see the commit table. It's here where we can click on the link over here to view the transaction record. If we click on it, we can view the transaction details in the Numbers mainnet Explorer. Okay, so what's displayed on the screen here is the transaction record. If we look over here, there's an asset ID. So as mentioned before, this is the ID that is used to index all the digital media that's been registered on Numbers protocol and makes them searchable. If we scroll down a little further and we look under here under call function, we can view the information that's stored on chain. So we can go ahead and click in UTF-8, and we can see the information that's stored on chain. For a better view of this, we can actually take a look at something called the asset trees. So the asset tree is a formatted file containing the assets information. So let's go ahead and click on that. So all files that have on-chain records for Numbers protocol will have an asset tree file. So with a quick rundown, we can see there's asset CID, there is the SHA-256, there's also the encoding format, there's also the time created, the creator, the license generated by, as well as just any other metadata information. Okay, so that's it. In this walkthrough, we were able to set up a fully operational data pipeline that takes in a text prompt and generates an image using Stable Diffusion AI model. Unlike other AI-generated images, it also registered with a unique ID onto Numbers blockchain, creating an on-chain record, defining things like the license, creator, and most importantly, how it was created. With no code at all and the power of Numbers protocol, we have created a fully transparent and traceable Web3 AI-generated asset that is able to stand out in the sea of untraceable digital media. We hope you find this cool and helpful, and yeah, have a nice day.